Hello, how you doing? It's Phil Thatch, and I'm out and about today testing a new lens. It's the Viltrox 28mm f1.8. This is a full frame autofocus lens for the Nikon Z cameras, and I've been shooting with it this morning on my full frame Nikon Z6. This is the first version of the Z6, but it's working well on this camera. It's a moderately sized lens, as you can see here on the Z6. It has a aperture ring, non-clicked, that goes from 1.8 all the way to f16, and just past f16 there's an A where you can shift into automatic mode, or you can control the aperture on this lens with the front command dial, which is how you normally control a lens on a Z series camera. So I've just kept mine in the A position and controlled my aperture with the front command dial. The lens is all metal construction, or it appears to be all metal construction. That aperture ring might be plastic, and it has a plastic lens hood, which is kind of a bear to get this thing on and off. Maybe I'm not doing it right, but it's kind of tricky to get this lens hood on and off. Once it's on there, it's definitely not going to fall off. That is for sure. This lens has a 55mm filter thread, and I did some video testing with it that you'll see later in this video, where I put an adapter and put a neutral density filter on, and the threads on the filter threads are metal, which is really nice. So what I've been doing, and what I'm going to continue to do, is just wander around with this lens and make photographs. You won't find a lot of pixel peeping in my lens reviews, and you won't see a lot of charts and graphs and all that sort of stuff. There's plenty of camera reviewers out there on YouTube that do that sort of thing. My philosophy is just take a lens and go out and shoot pictures with it and see what I can do with the lens, and then you can get an idea of how it works in the real world. So I'm going to get back to it, and you can get started with it. Join me. I stopped here at this beautiful area of the Tennessee River Park. It's just an access road that takes you down to the waterfront, and it's lined with these beautiful trees. And I made a couple of shots with the Viltrox 28 1.8. I think I had it stopped down to f5.6, and I really like looking at it in this direction, because there's some railroad tracks that kind of come in and curve out of the frame, and then the road curves out of the frame in the other direction. And I thought this 28mm focal length would be nice to experiment with getting a landscape photography shot this morning. These photographs have been edited just a little bit, nothing major done to them. One of the main things I did was crop this to 16:9 so it looks good on a YouTube display. But this is the shot looking down the road lined by trees. I like the railroad track coming in on the left and the road coming in on the right. Just a beautiful day and a beautiful area. And you can see that I made this shot at f5. I wasn't trying to get a minimum depth of field, I was trying to get a lot of depth of field. And you don't have to stop down to f11 with a 28mm lens to get a lot of depth of field. Just f5 or 5.6 will do everything you need usually. This is a similar photograph, also at f5. I just moved a little bit closer. And the elements of this shot that I really like are the railroad track on the left and the road coming in on the right. And they kind of come together right here, and then they go off with leading lines going in different directions at the bottom of the frame. And that's kind of the subject of all three of these shots. This is another shot at f5. And then on this third version of that shot, I moved much closer. And on this one, you've got a lot of leading lines of this railroad track going way out to this side, but they still come together here, the railroad track and the road, and then split off. I like the fall color here to the left of this frame. And in this shot, you can really see this beautiful tree with all of its gnarly branches over here on the right. So, and I think on this one I did finally stop it down to f5.6 instead of f5. I followed those railroad tracks down a little way, and I made a photograph at f5.6 of this switch. You can see where this is a switch that's operated by, it's man operated, not computer controlled. And you just move this lever back and forth, and you can change the direction that a train goes as it goes down this track. As I was walking back to the car, I found this turtle in the middle of the road. Now this one I did a little bit more editing on. I did use a linear gradient to darken the foreground because it was really bright and it took away from the turtle. But just a turtle walking across the road, and this is looking in the opposite direction. You can see the railroad tracks here and the trees here. There's a little bit maybe of chromatic aberration around these trees, maybe just a little maybe not. I'm not sure exactly what that is because it's not purple or green, but there does seem to be something. And this is stopped down to f5.6, but I'm at basically the minimum focus distance of the lens to get this turtle this big in the frame. And even at 5.6, the background is nicely bokeh-fied. The lens renders well. When I showed Heather the pictures I made today, this was her favorite because she likes animals. This photograph and the next one haven't been edited at all. This is two shots wide open at f1.8 of this overflow parking sign. And in this shot, I'm relatively close to it, and you can see how out of focus the trees are in the background. And then the next shot, I'm going to be at pretty close to minimum focus distance. And you can see, even at f1.8, the sign is nice and sharp. And if you're really close to your subject, especially at f1.8, even though this is a wide lens, 28 millimeters, you can really blow the background out if that's what you're looking to do. Still at the river park now. I've come all the way down to the river and I made a photograph of some trees. This is an f5 shot, just doing some landscape photography with a relatively wide lens. Really fond of this shot. I like the way the light was shining on the C.B. Robinson Bridge as it goes across the Tennessee River. This is another f5 shot, 1/1000th of a second, ISO 160. The lens renders well, and I like the way the clouds looked in the sky. Also, it's cool that there's a fishing pier right here, part of the river park. And I also cropped this one to 16:9 to make it look good in a YouTube situation. This shot is looking in the opposite direction of the bridge, and you can see a boat going by it. I've got it kind of rule of thirds, and this has lots of leading lines. The boat is going here, the river is going here, and this meandering path is kind of going in that same direction as well. So everything is heading to the right-hand side of the screen with the leading lines in this shot. And the 28mm Viltrox did a fine job of capturing this scene. Now I'm at the teaching garden at the Chattanooga Area Food Bank. This shot is at 5.6. My focus point is right here, and I don't think I edited this at all. The next shot, the focus point is also here, but look how the background changes. 5.6 and 1.8. And I don't think it's quite as sharp at 1.8 on the things that are in focus, but the out of focus things are definitely beautifully out of focus in the background there. This is also at the Chattanooga Area Food Bank, the garden there. There's a building, and this cistern collects water off the roof of the building whenever it rains. I've been doing a lot of my testing today, not at f1.8, not wide open on this lens. I've been enjoying the 28mm-ness of this lens more than the 1.8 millimeter-ness. But right now I'm doing a video test with it here at the Tennessee River Park, and I'm shooting at 1.8. In order to shoot at 1.8 and get the 180-degree rule right with my shutter speed, I have a 6-stop neutral density on there. It's a Maven 6-stop. And what do you think? How does it look? I really love the light today. I've got my own natural softbox behind me, so there's nice soft light on me, but there is some light on the trees in the background, and the sky is pretty beautiful. And I think this lens is doing a nice job of rendering it. Now let's see what happens if I move around. See if it keeps me in focus as I move around a little bit through the frame. Hopefully I'm staying in focus, and the trees in the background, the focus on them is varying a little bit as I do this test. I'm shooting with the Nikon Z6 today, which does not have a flippy screen, so I can't tell at all what's happening, but you'll be able to tell. Let me know what you think. I brought the Viltrox 28mm 1.8 to downtown Chattanooga now, and I've made some shots in various places, kind of over near the Tivoli Theater. Now I'm on top of the City Park Garage, and I've been a number of other places as well. Let's see what I'm getting in downtown Chattanooga with this nifty little lens. Now I'm downtown. This is an f4 shot. It's a vertical shot. I did crop it to 4:5, and it's ISO 100 and 1/100th of a second. This is the Tivoli Theater, beautiful old theater downtown Chattanooga. And this is another f4 shot. I'm at 1/200th now, and I noticed some blinkies at 1/100th, so I sped my shutter speed up. And I've kind of sacrificed. In this shot, I was making sure to get the vertical Tivoli sign, and in this horizontal shot, I wasn't worried about the vertical sign at all. I just wanted to get closer to the main sign. And then I did what I love to do when I'm doing a photo walk downtown, is a panning blur of this Tennessee American Water Company F-150 as it goes past the Tivoli Theater. This, I stopped it down to F10 so I could get my shutter speed down to 1/30th of a second. Here's a 1.8 shot. I'm focused on this pole, on this fence where they're doing some construction near the Tivoli, and I wanted to show the bokeh balls in the background of the lights on the bottom of the Tivoli sign. But the focus point is here, and I'm wide open at 1.8. Here's another 1.8 shot just down the road from the Tivoli. I focused on this fire hydrant in the foreground to show the out of focus background. This is not minimum focus distance, but it's pretty close. This lens doesn't have a really close minimum focus distance. And of course, whenever I'm doing a street photography photo walk, I try to find an alley, and then I try to capture someone as they walk by the sidewalk at the end of the alley. This is an f2 shot. Worked out pretty good, I thought. One of my favorite shots of the day from a street photography point of view, I saw this young man with his bright colored hoodie in the window. I thought it would be interesting to capture this empty table and chairs outside the window and also capture him in his bright colored hoodie, and he cooperated very well with his folded arms and looking off into the distance. I really liked the way this shot turned out. Probably from a street photography point of view, it was probably my best shot of the day, and the Viltrox 28 made it easy to capture. I thought it was interesting to stand at the end of this construction area where you can walk under the construction on the sidewalk and look down the street and make this shot. Also an f2 shot. And now I'm on the roof of the parking garage, the City Park parking garage, and I made this shot. I've made a shot like this before in the evening with the lights going across the street, looking really cool. Not quite as cool looking during the daytime, but I just like the way this area looks, and with a 28mm lens you can capture it quite well. This is the circular ramp that takes you back out of the parking garage, and I thought I'd make a shot of this. The 28 captured this nicely as well. And here's the sign that tells you this way out at the top of the parking garage. F2, I focused on the arrow and let the out word kind of drift out of focus on this one. And this is looking off the parking garage towards the Marriott and the Talon building there in downtown Chattanooga. There's a mirror in the elevator, and I made this shot of myself as I went back down to ground level. I made this one at 1.8 to keep my ISO low, 1/80th of a second. And here's another example of how bokehfied the background can be. I'm at pretty close to minimum focus distance on the vine in the foreground, and that's some crepe myrtles out of focus in the background. I've made this shot before with my 24-105 Canon lens, but it's an f4. This 1.8 lens really blows it out a lot better. If you look up here in these bokeh balls, there doesn't seem to be any chromatic aberration with this lens, although I'm sure if you really pixel peep with it with a brighter background than this, you could probably find some, but in this example it looks pretty good. Now this shot I probably should have stopped down a little bit, but I actually made this shot of the parking garage that I was on top of earlier at f1.8. I really enjoyed using the Viltrox 28mm f1.8 autofocus prime for full frame cameras. This one's for the Nikon Z, and I don't think it held me back at all. At no point today did I say to myself, man, if I just had some other brand name 28mm lens, I could really get this shot I'm working on. I think I was able to get any shot with this lens that I would have been working on with some other brand name. So it did really well, and if you're in the market for a reasonably priced 28mm prime, a fast prime at f1.8 for your full frame camera, this might be one to consider. Thanks a bunch for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, take a moment, reach down, hit the thumbs up button, and if you want to see some more content like this and all sorts of other photography related stuff, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell. And as always, I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye-bye.